So today I'm going to talk about this ultimate gaming PC that I put together for this video using the new Ryzen 9 9950X3D processor and the RTX 5090 graphics card. So I'm going to go over the parts that I used for this build, what can you expect from it performance-wise, and how it compares to a very similar high-end system, but then from the last generation. And I know that this sort of a build is far from being cheap, and I do plan on making a very similar video, but then with a more affordable configuration in mind. But I also think it is fun to see what can you get if you're lucky enough to not worry about your budget, or if you, I don't know, perhaps win the lottery. And as you can probably guess, I did make this video with the help of ASUS, plus they were also kind enough to send over a bunch of their top-end ROG stuff to build with, including both an air-cooled and a liquid-cooled version of the RTX 5090 graphics card. So I'm going to be looking at how they compare to each other as well. And no, I don't get to keep any of these parts. They will all be going back after this video goes live. So as I said at the start, the CPU I used was the Ryzen 9 9950X3D, and that should be an obvious choice for any ultimate build at the moment. It is the fastest consumer CPU on the market, both for gaming and productivity, beating the Intel Core Ultra 9 285K by almost 20% in games and in all CPU heavy workloads that last more than a minute or two, which is pretty much all of them. And since we use the 9950X3D CPU, we also need an AM5 motherboard to go with it. And no, you won't get a faster system if you go for a very high-end board, but a higher-end motherboard will get you more features like integrated I/O covers, easier GPU removal, easier SSD installation, more M.2 slots, more USB ports, debug LEDs and hex displays, and just all the little quality of life improvements that will make the process of building your PC much easier, or finding a problem if something goes wrong much easier. And since this is supposed to be a very high-end build, I also went with the ROG Crosshair X870E, which pretty much has everything. The CPU also needs proper cooling, and I used the ASUS ROG Ryujin 3 for this build. So this cooler was able to handle a near 300-watt Intel CPU easily, so it should be plenty for the more efficient Ryzen 9 as well. And I've used the previous version before, but this is a newer addressable RGB Extreme version that comes with addressable RGB fans instead of the black Noctua fans, but it still has that nice little display and a fan around the pump block to generate some airflow around the VRMs. These X3D CPUs don't benefit much from having memory with really high clock speeds like with Intel, and it can get really fiddly with BIOS settings, so going for lower latency DDR5 6000 memory is the way to go, in my opinion. I went with the G.Skill DDR5 6028 kit that AMD said should work really well with these particular CPUs. For storage, if you want to nicely go top end, the obvious option will be to throw in as many Samsung 9100 Pro drives as possible. And the GPU choice is also an obvious one, since the RTX 5090 doesn't have any real competition performance-wise. And as I said at the start, we have both the water-cooled and the air-cooled version of the RTX 5090 Astral graphics card, and we actually tested this system with both models. They have the exact same specs, so the same clock speeds, same connections, and same features, including the option to see the power distribution on the individual cables of the 12-volt 2x6 power connector, with the main difference between them being what they do with the 600 watts that the RTX 5090 generates. The air-cooled Astral has a really big heatsink and 4 fans, while the liquid-cooled version has an all-in-one solution with a 360mm radiator with 3 fans that push the heat out. To power the whole system up, I used a 1200-watt ROG Thor Platinum 3. It should be plenty for this build. It is an ATX 3.1 model, as you would expect. It comes with very nice modular cables, and the display is actually movable, so it doesn't force you to put the fan in a particular orientation to be able to see the display. And since this is an ROG build, I will be using their Hyperion case again, since it is still their most high-end model. It is big, it easily fits any parts you want to use. there is a ton of space for cable management, and it is just an easy case to work in, especially if you want to swap out some parts later or change the orientation of your fans, for example. But let's see what this build can do performance-wise. And here you can see the results of this build with the liquid-cooled 5090 and the air-cooled 5090, as well as the results of my 14900K 4090 build from last time. At 4K resolution in a GPU limited scenario, this system is about 30 to 40% faster than the fastest system from 2 years ago. And between the two 5090s, the liquid-cooled was roughly 1% faster than the air-cooled version, but that is a very small difference, and it could just as well be a sample variant, so I would say they are just as fast. In a CPU-heavy benchmark, the difference between this new system and the old one really depends on the application that you look at, but generally, the new system is between 10% and 30% faster. For the thermal test, I've tested the air-cooled 5090 using the 3 intake fans in the front that the case comes with, and the liquid-cooled 5090 with the radiator actually mounted in the front of the case. And if we just stress the CPU, we cannot see any big differences. The CPU temperatures are almost identical, the GPU temperatures are very similar, the motherboard VRMs were also more than cool enough, with a 3-degree difference in the case air temperature between the two setups, which also kind of makes sense since we don't have any intake fans anymore. And while playing Cyberpunk 2077 in its RT overdrive mode, because that really stresses the GPU and the CPU, the processor was running a whole degree cooler while using the air-cooled GPU, and the GPU cores were a degree cooler using the liquid-cooled GPU. But the GPU memory was cooler using the air-cooled model, so the results are more or less the same no matter which card you go for. But as you can see in the build, we also used an all-in-one CPU cooler with the radiator mounted in the top of the case and with its fans blowing the hot air out. So with the liquid-cooled GPU mounted in the front, we actually only have outtake fans, and that is definitely not ideal. So if we flip the orientation of one of those coolers, and I even took the worst option here, so I flipped the GPU radiator fans to be intakes and blow all that heat that a 600-watt GPU creates into the case, the results were still pretty good. The CPU and the chipset were marginally warmer, but the GPU cores, GPU memory, as well as the air between the socket and the memory were actually a bit lower than when you point the fans as outtakes. Now, ideally, you could also flip the CPU radiator fans on top, but even if you do what I did, because it is more aesthetically pleasing, the results will be just perfectly fine in this case. So, if you're deciding between an air-cooled and a liquid-cooled GPU in general, some thermals will look a bit better with one, and some thermals would look a bit better with the other. But those differences are not that big, or at least not in this particular setup. Now, personally, I kind of tend to lean towards the air-cooled GPUs a bit more because I just like having fewer mechanical parts, but both options are completely viable. And if you're able to go for a build like this one, I would say that you can just go for whichever one you like more, because as you can see from the graphs in this video, there are no really wrong options here. And you will end up with a system that is considerably faster than any high-end build from the last generation. So that is pretty much everything I had for this video, but before I go, I do want to mention that ASUS is hosting a giveaway with a lot of ROG prizes, including some of the parts that I used for this build. So if you're interested in that and you want to sign up, I'm going to put a link in the description box down below and you can go ahead and check it out. And if you like this video and you want to see more videos like this one, please do consider clicking that subscribe button so you never miss my future uploads. Bye guys, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!